everybody, it's Kim again, and I want to show you today how to make a really good stir fry. I love stir fries because they're really fast. You could use leftovers and make an excellent dinner, though today I'm not going to use any leftovers, believe it or not. Anyway, because I am known as the queen of leftovers. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a beef stir fry, and first thing I'm going to do is, as I'm heating up my pan, I'm going to heat this on high, and I sprayed the pan really, really well with cooking spray. I have my beef here. Let me, there you go, so you can see it. I have my beef here, and I sliced it into 1/4-inch slices. I'm using a strip steak because I just happen to have it in my refrigerator, and so that's why I'm using that. But you can use anything you want, London broil or any kind of flank steak or whatever. So generally, you want to make sure your beef is nice and tender. If you notice at a Chinese restaurant, the stir fries you can never believe how nice and tender the meat is. So this is what they do. This is a secret. It's less than 1/2 teaspoon. I have in this bowl 1.5 pounds of strip steak sliced, and I put less than 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda with just a tiny little bit of water, just to make it a little bit of a slurry. And I mixed it around about 5 minutes ago. You only have to let it sit for about 5 minutes. So that's going to start breaking down the muscle fibers and make it nice and tender. It's like a natural meat tenderizer. So I'm going to add to this a slurry of cornstarch and water. I have about 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and I mixed it with about the same amount of water. And I'm just going to pour that in this beef too. This is also going to help with the tenderization of it, and it's also going to help thicken the sauce. So I'm going to mix this around. There you go. And I'm going to let it sit for a couple minutes. And while this is still heating, I'm going to mix together some soy sauce. I have about 1/2 cup, 3/4 cup. Remember, this is 1.5 pounds of meat, so about 3/4 cup of soy sauce. You could use low sodium, and that's perfect. With that, I'm going to mix in some more cornstarch, another tablespoon or so. I want you to be able to see this. I have a little bit of brown sugar. I like to use Splenda brown sugar. There, now you can see me again. Splenda brown sugar because it's, it's a little bit less calories, and that way you could use a little less sugar that way. And I'm going to put a little bit of sherry. I like putting sherry in with my stir fries because it goes really well. And I'm also going to put a little bit of ginger. I have about a tablespoon of freshly grated ginger. And I have a really big tablespoon of garlic, fresh garlic. Gotta have garlic in a stir fry. I'm going to mix this all together really well. And I'm going to pour it onto my beef. And just let that marinate for a few minutes. You can let this marinate in the refrigerator for, I don't know, 4 hours, up to 4 hours maybe. But it doesn't need that much. Okay, so my pan is nice and hot, so I'm gonna stir fry some onions, thinly sliced onions, along with, I made some julienne carrots. I'm gonna turn this down a little bit more. And what I have, and I don't like to waste anything, so I had some broccoli the other day, and the stems were really big, and I didn't want to just throw them away. So I took a vegetable peeler, and I took off the hard outsides, and then I sliced it into these little rings. I steamed them a little bit, just so that they weren't really, really hard, but I still kept them tender crisp because I like that crunch that it gives. And they're delicious. They're very sweet. So I'm going to add those. And I have some Shiitake mushrooms that were dry, and I reconstituted them in hot water. So I took them and I drained them, I squeezed all the water out, and I sliced them. So I'm going to add those. And I did not throw away the water. As a matter of fact, I'm going to serve this on top of brown rice. And when I made the brown rice, I used the shiitake water because it's got a lot of flavor instead of using plain water. So I never throw that away either. It's really, really good. You can throw it into a soup stock or anything. So it's got a lot of flavor in that shiitake water. So I'm going to add this. I'm going to let this cook just for a couple of minutes. I have some string beans, but I had already steamed them, so they're tender crisp. I'll throw these in at the last minute. I just want these to cook up a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push them to the side. And I'm going to add my beef. I'm going to spray this pan a little more with some cooking spray. And I'm going to add my beef and reserve the marinade. I just want to brown the beef. And I'm going to try not to make a big mess like I am. No fun cooking if you can't make a mess, right? Alright. So I got my beef in here. And while that is searing, I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. Mix this together over here because I don't want them to burn on one side. Alright, I'm going to save this marinade. And while this is cooking, I'm going to make some, let me show you, pickled vegetables. My mother, she's Japanese, and we grew up with this cucumber salad in my house. We literally had it every single day with dinner. It goes good with everything, and I always make it, I always have it in the refrigerator. So I'm going to show you, I actually am going to make it with radishes also, because I happen to have some radishes. So what I did was my mandolin, I took the radishes and I just sliced them really thin. So I have a cucumber here, and I'm going to do the same thing with the cucumber. Mandolin is like one of the best inventions on earth. I used to do this by hand all the time. Not only does it take a lot of time, but you can never get the slices to be the same size. So, alright. So I have that, and I'm going to take a little bit of salt and salt these. And what I have here is seasoned gourmet rice vinegar. This is Japanese vinegar that's seasoned. It's a little bit sweet. So I'm going to put a little bit in there, and I'm going to put about the same amount of apple cider vinegar. I like to use the raw, unfiltered, because it's just better for you. It has some probiotics in it. So I'm going to add about the same amount of that. And I'm going to mix it together. See if I can find myself a spoon. Let me give this a toss. Now this is developing a really beautiful crust. Look at that. Oh wow, that looks really good. I don't know if you can see it. There you go. Look how beautiful this crust is. I want to turn all the beef over so it all cooks evenly. I'm going to give this a stir on this side. Alright, this is almost done. So what I'm actually going to do before I stir this is I'm going to put in my already steamed string beans. So put that in there. And I'm going to actually add the rest of this reserved marinade to the bowl, or to my pan. And I'm just going to mix it all together. It'll be easier if I use my spoon. And let this cook for a few minutes until the beef is cooked all the way through. Alright, so I am going to turn this down a little bit. I'm going to put the top on it and let it cook for just a few more minutes. And meanwhile, I am going to show you my, let's see if you can see it. My cucumber salad. Now I added the salt and the 2 types of vinegar, and I'm just going to mix it around. And I'm going to let it sit. You can actually add some dill or, whatever kind of parsley or anything you want. I actually add dill once in a while. I do like the flavor of dill with cucumbers. So I'm going to let this sit. Now the salt in it is actually going to take some of the water out. So while this sits, it'll start getting more and more watery. And actually, I'm going to taste it so that I can adjust the seasoning. I actually think it could use more of the seasoned vinegar. You're going to have to taste this whenever you make it, because depending on how much cucumbers you use, how many cucumbers, and the amount of water that is in the cucumbers, I always like to use the hothouse cucumbers because they have less seeds and they don't seem as watery. Alright, I'm going to taste it again. Much better. I think that's good. Alright, so I'm going to let that sit. Meanwhile, I'm going to stir this. Now this is just about done. It looks really, really good. It's thickening up really well, and I think I'm going to actually add a little bit of water because I want to make more sauce. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to pour the water right into this bowl so I can use up the rest of this marinade. That looks really, really good. Alright, now as a last little bit, I have a jar of orange marmalade. I actually got the no sugar added orange marmalade. You can use whatever brand you like. And I'm just going to add maybe half a jar. Just to add a little orange flavor. Orange goes really well with beef, especially in a stir fry. And just let it melt into the sauce. Yum. It smells really, really good. And this is done. Turn this off. I'm just going to taste it just to see if it's seasoned okay. It's really, really good. The orange marmalade kind of adds a little bit of sweetness but bitterness also from the orange peel. And I really like that. That's really, really good. Okay. So, meanwhile, this sat for a few minutes. And the longer it sits, I usually like to make it at least an hour in advance. And as it sits, more water comes out of it. And you can pour off the water just before you serve it. And you might even want to adjust the seasoning, the amount of vinegar again. I got it perfect, so I don't need to. All right, so I have a bowl, and I already cooked some rice. I actually like to use my pressure cooker to cook rice. It makes a great rice cooker. And what I did was I put equal parts of brown rice and water. Actually, I used that shiitake water. And then I just set it 15 minutes and then let it turn off and just let it release its pressure on its own and it takes about another 15 minutes. So in 30 minutes you get perfectly cooked rice. Now this brown rice is short grain brown rice. It's Japanese short grain brown rice, and you can find it at any grocery store, but I like it with my stir fries. But you can use any kind of rice. You could use cauliflower rice if you don't want to have the starch. But I'm using regular rice because I didn't want to waste my shiitake water. So anyway, I have my rice here. I'm going to put a little bit in a bowl. And I'm going to add my stir fry. I'm going to use this. Oh, this looks really good. And always have to add some fresh chopped scallions. You could add some sesame seeds or whatever to make it pretty. But this is a really good stir fry. And actually, I have my chopsticks. My favorite part really are those mushrooms. I love shiitake mushrooms. And I actually like the dried ones better than the fresh ones because they seem more concentrated in flavor to me once you reconstitute them. Plus you get the bonus of having that broth. That's really, really good. And if you want to serve it with a little spritz of vinegar at the end, it might brighten it up a little bit if you want. It's totally to taste. But this is a really healthy way to add some good vegetables and some beef. If you had a leftover steak or chicken, you could just slice it up and throw it in at the end if it's already cooked. It's so easy using up your leftovers like that. And leftover any kind of vegetables. You don't have to use the type of vegetables I use, just whatever you want. So, actually I forgot to eat this with it. How pretty is that with the green and the red with the radishes. But let me show you close up. Can you see? Yum! So I'll see you again next time, and I will be conjuring up something else for you to eat. Or for me to eat and for you to cook. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Bye!